This is a story of unspeakable tragedy.
For many, many years, when I came to this country in 1950, they were asking me to make the testimony, and I didn't want to go because it opens on my bleeding heart.
In barns, fields, and forests at the age of 14 and surrendered to the Nazi forces at 16. Today at 92, Helen Polack is a mother and grandmother working through memories that remain vivid.
I charge each one of us here today with relaying the account of Ms. Polack to at least one person who's not here today.
By the Bronx Women's Bar Association to speak at the 9th annual Holocaust Remembrance at the Bronx Hall of Justice, she shared details of her life in Sambor, a ghetto established by the Germans in the Ukraine bordering Poland at a time when anti-Semitism during World War II had reached its peak.
We were 4 Jewish girls in the class, and that morning when I came to the class, the teacher, she was a big anti-Semite, get out and don't come back.
That tone continued to grow, says her son, Martin Polack, who shared this point in history.
In April 1943, there was a mass action. 1,200 Jews were taken out of the ghetto and marched to the cemetery. All the Ukrainian and Polish citizens came out into the streets yelling, "Good for you Jews, you should all go to your death."
Immediate family of 5 would split with plans to reconvene. She shared her final moments with her mother, who made arrangements for her to stay with a Ukrainian family for 3 days.
And she said, "Don't kiss me." This was like Tuesday. She said, "Don't kiss me, I'm going to say goodbye because Friday we're going to come there." So came Friday, she never arrived.
She later learned her mother was beaten into a grave. Her sister survived by jumping from a truck headed to a cemetery. And her brother, seen here, was beaten to death for failing to disclose the location of 16 people he was hiding.
It pains me, but it is good for the public to hear it, particularly in this very terrible time of outright anti-Semitism.
Referring to the recent deadly shooting at Congregation Shabbat in Poway, California, Veronica Mandell, a Bronx attorney and member of the Bronx Women's Bar Association, shared the lecture hit close to home.
Sadly, unfortunately, because of my background, my mother was a survivor of Auschwitz and Dachau.
An attorney, Richard Soloman, comes to the annual events and remains stunned at what he hears, so much so that he filmed a documentary on a past speaker, Soloman Kopinas, who survived the occupation of Athens, Greece, as a child.
I think the common thread is that all these people have tremendous bottled up suffering, stories of survival, but at an incredible cost.
I was very fascinated and I felt bad because nobody should have to go through that much pain.
Playing on a violin featured in the Oscar-nominated film Joe's Violin, once owned by Joe Feingold, a Holocaust survivor who spoke last year about purchasing the instrument from a displaced persons camp in 1947 and donating it recently to the Bronx Global Learning Institute for Girls, where Amanda Moreno attends. Moreno called it an honor to keep his memory alive. Kokoe Tanaka-Suwan is the school's musical director.
We think it's very important just for our young people to hear firsthand about what these survivors have endured and gone through.
She did make it through, a survivor who managed to stay alive despite the odds against her, hiding in swamps and bushes and anywhere where she could lay her head. She would finally drum up the courage to visit her uncle's farm occupied by the Nazis. He took her to a neighboring village and paid someone to take her to a labor camp where the atrocities would continue and where they waited for the Russians to liberate them. That would not happen, as 3 groups of 800 were sent to Auschwitz. Once silent, she now wants the world to hear her story.
And I realize how important it is to leave it to the children, my children, your children, to know what really happened.
For Bronxnet, Arlene Makoko.